Hey, what's up guys? Shane here with Rice Creek Bushcraft. I just got back today. I did an overnight with my 6-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old son, and then I took my nephew who's 17. I just wanted to show you guys what I used and kind of describe what we built and what we did that day. I kind of promised a video about these saws, and I just didn't really get to it. It's hard to do with kids. They're running around yelling and playing and you're watching them, so it's hard to really make a good video. So I'm just going to tell you what I did with them and describe you know, thoughts about them, and let you guys kind of make your own decisions on what you think would work for you. But the 3 knives I took, because I think that's a huge thing with me, is when I go, I have serious anxiety about which knives I'm going to use. So I'm just going to take one, but that turns into 2 and 3, sometimes 4 or 5. This time I kept it to a minimum of 3 knives. So I took my fallkniven nL5, which is the Iden. It's really windy today, so hopefully this comes out. But this is literally my favorite knife of all the fixed blades that I have. I just love this knife. Everything about it, the feel, the weight, the thickness, the 4-inch blade length, everything is, to me, is perfect. So I took this, and I had my, I don't want to call this a custom S1, but I guess I don't know the history of it or the real background. I purchased it from a guy. The normal S1 comes with their rubberized like craton handle like this. This one has these micarta handles, which are nice. They don't have quite the grip, but it makes the knife a lot heavier. Because I have the regular S1 also. I personally like this a little better just because of the weight. So that's the other knife I took, and then I also had my Tk2, which I got to get some good use on this because I've had it for a few weeks, but I really haven't got to use it a whole bunch. I've used it some. So this is in 3G steel, the other two are in VG10. So anyways, I'll try to make this short as possible, not bore you guys to death. But what I thought, my impressions of using the knives, of doing really finer tasks, it obviously makes sense. You like a smaller, thinner blade, and I found that to be the case with the Tk2. It really performed really well, making notches and making, you know, we made some tent stakes because we had a tarp. We made a like an A-frame tarp shelter is what we designed, what we made. And for making the finer stuff, this did really awesome. I mean, really, the other two didn't do quite as well. So that was the good about it. It was good for the smaller, finer tasks. What does scare me a little bit is the tip is super fine and thin. I don't know if it would break, but I was a little nervous of doing much prying at all with it, or putting a lot of pressure, because I just wasn't sure about the tip. So the things I did with it, it worked really well. I really enjoyed using it. It's got really good grip on it. I didn't feel like I was going to lose control at any time. But yeah, and also I just wanted to mention, I used the protruding tang because it's pretty sharp. I used that. That worked pretty good for striking a fire steel. I was kind of joking with my nephew. He was trying to make a fire forever, and I said, "Good night. It's taking you long enough." And I was messing around, and I hit a fire steel with this one time, and I was just shooting it at the ground, and it hit a leaf and caught it on fire after he spent about 10 minutes. So yeah, I got a good laugh out of that. He didn't think it was quite so funny. But yeah, I mean, this knife has got great weight, you know. I like the blade thinness for doing the finer tasks that work really well. We'll also talk about the difference in blade steels, or lack thereof, before I finish. So then I had this on my side at all times, my nL5. So this knife has a little bit more weight and it's a bit thicker. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, you can definitely see that. It's thicker than the Tk2. So if you're going to do some light chopping on limbs and branches, I mean, I know these aren't going to chop through stuff this size, but if you got a limb this size and you're delimbing it, it's nice to just kind of chop it and hit it. This was a little bit too light for this. This had enough weight, but the one thing I didn't like is there's no cutout here at all to kind of hold for your finger like maybe the S1 has. So it was a little scary that it might slip out of my hands. I mean, this leather obviously doesn't have a lot of grip, so that's what I didn't like about it. But for everything else, I mean, it's got a nice thick tip. You can see that it's got plenty of thickness at the tip, carries it through. I didn't really worry about the tip at all. I actually did some prying with it. We were splitting a bigger log for the shelter, and I had to stick this in. We had a wedge in there, and I stuck this in and cut some of the extra fibers, and I was pretty hard on it, and it held up fine. So I didn't worry about that. I wouldn't have done that with the Tk2. I would have been just too afraid. But you know, maybe that's unwarranted. Maybe it would be perfectly fine. But just for me, it just was scary to me. You can see how it's really thin. So this did great for pretty much everything. I mean, I did some bataning with it. I shaved some sticks with it, which it does really super well. So yeah, the only thing I didn't like is the handle's not super grippy. I don't know, steel wool it or 600 grit paper maybe. I don't know. I just love this knife, so I might do something to get the handle to have it a little bit more grip. So then I used the S1, which realistically was awesome for everything. It did everything pretty well. It was definitely the best at chopping small limbs and branches and such, because it's got some pretty good heft to it. It didn't do like feather sticking and making the tent stakes that we needed for the tarp. It didn't do that as well. You know, it just gets thicker right here a lot faster. You know, above the apex here, the blade's considerably thicker. So I mean, it still did a great job. And if you just had one knife, like if I just had one knife, even though this is my favorite knife and I love it, I probably would take this for the simple fact that I can do some light chopping and stuff if need be, and I wouldn't be afraid to baton. I mean, it's plenty thick enough, so I wouldn't be. And it's got a little bit more length. You know, this is 4 inches. This is 5, or I don't know, maybe 5.1. It's a little bit longer, so you can baton through a little bit bigger stuff if you need to. I don't always think that batoning is necessary, but I make different things out there and tools. I make some tongs and stuff, and I need to do some batoning. So, you know, it's been raining here for over a month on and off, so everything is super wet. So I did need to get into some drier wood because everything was just soaked. So it's just nice to have that nice thick blade stock. Got some good weight. It does okay at light chopping. It's not a chopper, but it works good enough for stuff around camp. So those were the knives I used. That's what I thought about them. They all worked really well. I mean, I could probably get by with any of the three. If I just had one choice and this is all I had was one, I'd probably take the S1. But also I want to talk about the saws, because I have the Silky Big Boy and I have the Silky Katana Boy. Now let me tell you, I made a Siberian like long log fire, and I've never been able to do that because I've got just a Gomboy, which is, I don't know, around 6 inches. I think this is 14, just a scotch over 14-inch blade, and the Katana Boy is like 19 and a quarter. Ouch, yeah, they're really sharp. So initial impressions with using them just for one solid day. I use these all day basically. I mean, we spent a lot of time making our shelter. I don't know what all blade choices they have, guys. I can tell you what I have and what I thought of them. The Katana boy has 5 teeth per inch, and the big boy has 6.5 per inch. I found on the really hardwood, so I cut through some red oak, I cut through some sassafras, and I cut through some hickory. So of the 3, the sassafras is going to be the lighter the woods, the easier to cut through. The Katana boy definitely just tore through that stuff. I think because of the little bit more aggressive teeth. So like there was no pine. I really wanted some pine to cut, because a lot of times when we're camping, there's, you know, in the north there's usually pine and such. There just wasn't any around. It was all a hardwood stand. But so the sassafras was the least dense and the softest wood that I had available at the time, and the Katana boy ripped through that. Now the red oak, this tooth design, the 6.5, definitely did a lot better. But if I just could choose one of these, there's no question, even though it's huge and it's heavier, it's probably, I don't know, I haven't weighed them, but it's 3 times as heavy, I'd say. Definitely over double, probably 3 times as heavy. But wow, you can just cut some amazing stuff. I was cutting logs probably, you know, this size. I cut some stuff that was probably 5-inch in diameter, some big red oak pieces, and stuck them in the Siberian log fire. And I woke up a few times in the night and just pushed the logs further forward, and they took right off again. So that was a great. If you don't know what that is, you could check out Survival Russia. He's big on those fires. That's where I got the idea. So I kind of stole that from him. Thanks, Survival Russia. But it was an awesome fire. Normally you're putting smaller pieces in there, you're cutting and splitting a lot. You didn't have to do that. You just get big long pieces, stick them in, one on each side and one in the center, or maybe